Right. Last album.
Last album.
Rolling Stones. Yeah, who are these guys? Rolling Stones, Tattoo You, comes in at number 174 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 14 in 1981, number 1,107 of all time. It is the Rolling Stones' seventh highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. We have covered all the other six, so you can always you can go back and listen to those if you want.
Did we cover any that are under this, or is it literally like we covered the six?
We did not. No, we literally covered, unless there's something. Yeah, I think that was it. So this is the we didn't do go to. Yep. So this is this might be the last one we're covering too. But Rolling Stones, congratulations! You're now with David Bowie and King Crimson, three artists we've covered in each decade. And Rolling Stones comes at number 7 of the all-time artists on Best Ever Albums. So, yeah, there you go. John, what do you think of Tattoo You?
Oh, this is so sad. This was not the Rolling Stones that I wanted to end on right here.
Yeah.
This album was highly, highly disappointing. I mean, it starts with Start Me Up, which is almost impossible to use as a judgment point because I think it was recorded like 10 years ahead of this before this album was released, and that's the origin story I'm aware of. So it kind of was of another time in here, but it's also it's so used in everything from like Windows commercials to like like football games before the kickoff that it kind of exists outside of this album. So I kind of almost put it to the side, but I enjoy that song, so no problems with that. And I of course knew Waiting on a Friend, which is fine. It's, later Stones ballad. So the book ends there. Just in between, this album just didn't do much for me at all. They're kind of delving a little bit into reggae at different times. They're kind of digging a little bit into R&B. It just sounds like a band that is trying to find itself. As I think the Stones at this point would be in their early 40s, I feel like, and I think this is the stage where they themselves become sort of like a stadium rock band. And it leads to like Steel Wheels, right? And Voodoo Lounge, which...
Bridges to Babylon.
True story. My dad is a Stones fan, and he had all the Stones albums, but he only had 2 Stones CDs when I was young, and that was Voodoo Lounge and Steel Wheels.
I think my dad had those too.
It's my parents too.
Because they were the Stones, right? But everything else, they have the album, right? So, and I remember listening to those albums and going, I don't know, Dad, these guys aren't that good. And then it isn't until later that you're like, whoa, there's all kinds of great shit. It's just not that stuff. And I didn't know if Tattoo You was going to be like Some Girls, where we're like, whoa, this album, hidden gem. It was not for me a hidden gem. It was sort of watered down blues designed to be played in front of people paying $125 a ticket while you're running through this stuff mixed with them waiting for you to play, Satisfaction and, the songs that, Give Me Shelter, and the songs that, the 20 songs
from the other 6 albums that were
well, and others that we didn't cover, because there's some great songs on albums that we didn't cover as well. But it's like of the 20 songs, like 5 of them come from this, and so it's like you get Start Me Up to during this tour probably to start, and then you play a couple other ones, then Little TNA comes in, and then a couple others you want to hear, then like Slave comes in. You can almost see the songs that would be part of it, right? And, and just it didn't do anything for me. It just sounded a little bit tired, and it's just I don't like my Stones to not have edge, and this was an edgeless album, and I got to give this one a thumbs down, guys.
So was this an album we need to hear before we die, or you didn't pick this, did you?
I picked this, yes.
You did? Oh, okay. Yeah. You did. Yeah. All right. Actually, I have a little bit of a different take, John. I agree. I certainly agree with Start Me Up. It's like I don't need to listen to this song. I just skipped that song. That to me is one of the most overplayed songs ever. It's just it's the quintessential. Let's play, like all this stuff. Let's add it to a commercial. Let's put it in before a game. Whatever. So that's the only song I knew on this. Even Waiting on a Friend, I don't remember hearing much about. But my take on this was more of like, yes, okay, this is not Sticky Fingers, Exile, and Main Street. It's certainly, a couple of tiers below that for sure. Before
It ain't
below
Some
those
Girls
albums.
either.
And you're right, and it's not Some Girls either. I had a much more, positive reaction to that. But my take of this was like, even when the Stones aren't being like this transcendent blues rock band, they're still a really good blues rock band. Like I still felt like that there was, songs on. This was a really enjoyable album. I listened to this 3 times, and every time I did, like, yeah, it was good. They got some. It's not transcendent. It's not taking me to another level. But man, like in 1981, they still had it. I see what you're saying too about those other records because my parents had both Steel Wheels and Voodoo Lounge and Bridges to Babylon all on CD. It's like when the CDs came out and all like the people were like, the new Rolling Stones album's out, got to go get it on CD. And I don't remember caring much for any of those records. But this one, it's almost like you can see it kind of like it's
the start of the downhill.
Yeah, it's kind of going down, and it's gradually getting to the more generic. But it's not that other tier. It's not as edge. It's I wouldn't call it totally edgeless, John. I think I think you're a little bit harsh on it from where I'm sitting, but like it's still good. My take is even when the Stones are mediocre, they're still really good, And I think that compared to their, one of the reasons that this is knocked down a notch or two is because you're comparing it to the other stuff that they're capable of doing.
I kind of like it because it's got a little bit of a Springsteen quality to it too. There's like saxophone on this album, and like the song. I didn't pick up on that. I'm not saying you're wrong. It wasn't something. I wasn't going like, oh, this sounds Springsteen, but I just felt like it was a good blues rock album. It didn't. And sometimes blues rock to me can get into the generic realm, and I didn't find that with this. I still found the Stones doing a pretty good job of what they were really good at doing. Just a couple of years prior. So yeah, it's not quite the Some Girls where I was like, damn, that really kind of took me by surprise because I thought that that's the album that they were going to start losing their fastball. Where it might have been this one a little bit. But I still think this is good. Look, don't start with the Stones here. Don't even go in the middle with the Stones here. This is like a deeper cut for people that want to get more of a picture or get they just love the sound so much. But so in that regard, maybe this is a thumbs in the middle album. But I still liked it. So I guess that's my take on that.
Break the tie, Josh.
It's I found this a little forgettable. Also, it's derivative of themselves in some crazy way.
That's a good point. Yeah,
it's like they know because they've been doing it for so long, and they know what makes a Stone song. It's like they're not trying as hard or something, and or they know how to put it through the paces, and it's like a meme generator for Rolling Stones. I'll put in these keywords and then I'll make a blues rock song, and that's exactly what this album is. It's I found I didn't really find any of these songs that fun to listen to, and I do kind of agree with you, Matt. It's it's perfectly fine to listen to, and it's good blues rock, but there is something missing that made me there's no kind of hidden deep cuts here. There's not something that it doesn't have that Stones quality that has been on previous albums. Maybe it's the edge factor. Maybe it's just like they're just tired. I don't know. If they're in the early 40s, I kind of now am starting to know what that feels like. So maybe I can relate on some level.
Welcome to the club, Josh.
Maybe I'm also a shell of my former self.
That's
Who
right.
knows? Gotta
listen to season 1.
Yeah, exactly. I will say this though: when I was listening to this, it does not. They are not falling into the trap of trying to sound like what the '80s are trying to sound like. They are not picking up on trends. They are not. None of these other albums that we've listened to with synth or with all the post-punk stuff that we've listened to, none of that comes into play here. So they are not. Yeah. They're still doing what they are doing. They're not falling victim to trends or genre. The new hot thing. It's not like they're trying to make some sort of 80s dance pop album or something like that. They're still holding to the the blues rock. So in that sense, it doesn't sound like it's from 81. It could be from any era of blues rock in some form or fashion. So that did stand out, especially compared to all the other albums we listened to this week. So kudos to them for that, for at least knowing themselves that.
Stay in your lane, Rolling Stones.
Keeping it real.
I will say though too, like I think most of the songs left me going, okay. I thought "Hang Fire" was the one that was making me go, wow, that was the one that kind of got me up. I like the doo-doos and doo-doo that they were doing and stuff. And that was a quick song. I was like, I thought that was a really catchy song. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing terribly with you guys. It's just, I guess I was expecting worse. I was expecting more of the steel wheel stuff, and I didn't get that. And and it's
this is better than that era of the Stones.
Yeah,
because that's like mixed emotions and rock in a hard place where you think this is derivative. Josh, wait till you hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. A derivative of themselves. But you know what? But this is what they're a blues rock band, and they're still, I don't know. I still think there's some chops on here. But yeah, don't. There's a reason this is number 7, right? There's 6 other albums that you're better off going to, and maybe even some of the earlier, because we never really did a true early Aftermath might have been the earliest, and what was that? That was mid '60s, right? So there's several albums and singles. It's one of those things with the British bands that the songs didn't make it on an album, but they were released, and really like the early Stone stuff, which we kind of skipped over in a way.
The early Stone stuff, when they were doing like covers and stuff,
all covers,
really good stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I'll give you a good example. Like Little TNA is a good song, but it's, as Josh said, there's like 5 other Stones songs that do what it does better, and I think that's a good example because there's nothing wrong with the song, and it's a pretty good Keith Richards guitar part, but it's like not as good as the Truly Great. It's a guitar part driven Stones song, and it's a good guitar riff, but it's not there. And I think I was just hoping for more, but I was a little wary like you, Matt, that like is this where they jumped the shark? And I wouldn't go that far.
But do you think if this was a total?
You said about Journey, I wouldn't say this would not be offensive to me to listen to at all.
Right.
But it's but knowing what we've covered before, it's sort of like I don't know if this one rises to that level of that needs to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm. Well, 2 things. Number 1, I would much rather listen to this album than the Journey album. Number 2, would you do you think that part of this is because of comparing it to the other Stones stuff, whereas if this just existed as another band, I guess if it did, then we would probably be saying, oh, this is trying to be the Stones, right? And it's just not as good as the Stones. So maybe that answered my question right there.
Eric Clapton or anything like that either, like blues rock that you know what I mean? So it wouldn't be like it would just sort of be like, this is a good album, but I don't know if it's as good as like something like the Rolling Stones was at doing
Yeah. Okay.
It's also kind of, the blues rock that they're doing is kind of falling out of fashion in this time, because when you compare them to bands like Ozzy and AC/DC and Motorhead and all the punk rock that's come out, like that's all very
anything with synthesizers,
new wave, post punk.
It's all very different than this. And what other blues rock bands are like going on at this time that are new, right? They're not doing blues rock. They're doing other things. So that's like another thing. Like we've heard maybe the heyday of the best blues rock is in the 60s and 70s,
it makes a comeback
or obviously beforehand.
It comes back in the 90s. There's a ton of blues rock in the 90s, but the 80s does seem a little bit like a wasteland for it.
Yep. So it's just maybe just a fallow period for this subgenre, but and maybe that's why it doesn't ring true. It's hard not to compare. I mean, we do that for every album. We compare it to the artist's previous work, so it's impossible not to.
But I guess part of it was thinking like that because I know sometimes people do this where they have like an artist or probably usually early on. I really like this band. These first 3 albums are awesome, and then they quote unquote sell out, or then they get a little more earnest.
With Some Girls, and Some Girls was awesome.
Yeah.
And now we have another one. It's like, this isn't as awesome. So I think I
no, but
went through that test.
But my point being like that there's a certain time for a lot of people's favorite band where they stop doing the stuff that they really liked, and then they start like I hate them, and it's like, do you hate them? You could still like the older stuff, and just not like the newer stuff. It still that stuff still exists. We can all go back and listen to Exile and Main Street and not have to think about Tattoo You ever again if we don't want to, and it doesn't discredit those albums.
All we can look at is our record. We all liked King Crimson Discipline, right? We all liked Scary Monsters by Bowie. We all liked Some Girls, which was after. We all, two of us liked Blood on the Tracks, which came much after Dylan's stuff. I mean, I wouldn't say we're guilty of saying like, oh, this came later, and I think we've been pretty good at recognizing.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting we are. I'm just saying that's something that I hear people do sometimes, and it frustrates me. I'm like, no, you can still. That band doesn't suck. It's just those albums suck. You can still give yourself permission to still like that stuff, and be okay with it, knowing that they did something different, which is fine. So that's my only point. But I'm not saying we're doing that. Yeah, but
and we're now getting into the stage where the people we covered in the '60s are becoming people in their 40s, and so we get to see like who can hang.
It's hard, man.
And or is my philosophy that like the best music in the world is made by people in their 20s going to hold? So.
I don't know. I think the bands that, at least that we've seen so far, are the ones that are really continue to evolve, like Bowie and King Crimson and those bands. So
it's hard. I mean, music, popular music, and various genres is a young person's game for the most part. So